What's up, guys? Chris Brown, Chain Stasis Wellness, coming at you from Train Boston with another nutrition tip. Today, I want to talk to you guys about nutritional claims, or what I like to call grocery store clickbait. Now, on food, when you go into the grocery store, you see lots of little, I call them pop-up ads on the food. They're going to say GMO-free, gluten-free, low-fat, yada, yada, yada. You're going to see all these claims and all these little logos and pictures on the food. And in essence, what these things are trying to do is to get you to talk about their food, look at their food, and ultimately consume their food. That is the end game of these things, okay? And when we go into a grocery store, it's already difficult enough to figure out what are the right foods to buy, right? What's the right type of food to buy? But you actually have to have the willpower to get past the bad foods too. Even though you know they're not the right foods to buy pretty easily, it's still hard to go buy them. And the grocery stores don't make it easy. You have to wade through all this psychological warfare like music, lighting, fancy end caps, scents in the air, flashy ads, just to not buy that bad food. It's so delicious. And it's already hard enough. So let's talk about how we can, once we got past that part, how we can dig into these pop-up ads in our face and figure out which ones actually matter, which ones don't matter, and which ones you might be on the fence about. I'm not going to tell you how to feel. I'm just going to lay it out there in front of you so you come in with a little bit of education as a way to combat all these psychological tricks, right? So today I'm going to focus mostly on meat or animal products and animals themselves, and then we'll maybe dig into a little bit more. First, USDA organic meat, okay? U.S. Department of Agriculture. That's what USDA stands for. This type of meat has been fed 100% organic feed and forage. I find it funny that they use that to define something they put in the title of the word. Organic meat is fed organic feed. So what is organic meat, right? They're not telling you that. We'll get into that in a second. So the feed and forage they're fed, it includes no genetically modified feed or GMOs, genetically modified organisms, right? But it is not required to be grass-fed or grass-finished, okay? The living conditions the animal lived in are supposed to be accommodating their natural behavior. So, i.e. the ability to have, to be able to graze on pasture. And they can't have been administered antibiotics or hormones. Well, is this good? Does it matter? Do we care? Well, it depends, right? So antibiotics, you know what those are? Humans get them when we get infections. Well, we don't want our animals to get infections either. So that makes sense, right? This can prevent animal suffering. It can also help them grow at a more normal rate. All good things, right? Animals that grow slower need more food. They need more water, and they can also get other animals sick. We just don't generally like that, okay? So that can be good, okay? As far as the next part goes, the hormones. Farm animals are also given those to promote growth and development. Generally speaking, the big ones that they're given are sex hormones, testosterone, estradiol, and progesterone. Okay, those are things we all have, right? One of the more controversial ones is IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, and RGBH, or recombinant bovine growth hormone, right? So some people are concerned that these hormones can find their way into milk, right? Or perhaps the meat, which is less likely. And we will then consume them and we will have them in our bloodstream. And that will be bad for potentially developing certain types of cancer or any number of things, right? Now, there may be something to this, or there may not be. The FDA has decided in America that there isn't any really substantial evidence for them to ban it. But you'll still see items that say RGBH free or IGF-1 free, or they'll just say hormone free. That's something to consider. There isn't strong evidence out there. There are a lot of conflicting studies that kind of go back and forth. I'll let you guys be have the deciding factor on that. So if breast cancer runs in your family, maybe you want to avoid it. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to think. But we do know that Canada and Europe have both banned it. So use that as food for thought. They're probably just being overly cautious, but hey, I don't mind being overly cautious sometimes either. All right. So while the USDA organic Kobe beef, Wagyu beef, all those, they may have a greater chance of being healthier in general, don't break the bank on this food. if you can't afford it. Generally speaking, we want to be getting our protein. There's other things in meat we really do need. It helps us. But I don't know that we need to worry too much about spending a lot extra if it costs a lot extra. That being said, definitely some benefits to it. Now, you may have heard of grass-fed or American grass-fed or grass-finished. These are pretty newer terms as far as most people know. Grass-fed means the animal has been given access to grass, given access to pasture, and they're eating grass for most of their life. But it doesn't mean they have to have it till the moment they die, right? They can be fattened up with corn feed or grain feed right before they die, so they have more meat, more fat. So not quite what it sounds like, right? It's more lawyering. Grass finished means they had access to it for their entire life and always ate it, right? They always had pasture. And American grass fed is kind of like the gold standard of all this. The animal's probably treated a lot better. They have a lot more room, and they take care of that animal. So if you care about the humane part of it, that's definitely a better option. And the animal's probably going to be a lot healthier. So we know that when animals are fed more grass or their natural diet, ruminate animals, they're probably going to have a much better omega-6 to omega-3 fat ratio. We want that ratio to be a little lower in omega-6 and a little higher in omega-3. The American diet tends to have too much omega-6, grains and processed grains, and too little omega-3s, which come from a lot of animals, healthy animals, and fish and things like that, right? So definitely better, but can be a lot more expensive. So weigh your options. It's still not that bad to get the other type of beef. If you have to choose between grain-fed beef and no beef, probably grain-fed beef is fine for your family, right? Next, let's get into some chickens. Free-range, American Humane Certified versus pasture-raised and certified humane raised and handled. Okay, so with a free-range, that makes sense. Like the animals can move around, right? But they define this very lawyery. I hate that part about these definitions, right? Laying hens were given access to an outdoor area for at least 8 hours per day, weather permitting, right? It means they didn't necessarily even move, right? They just had access to it. It could be a small little door in the hen roost, right? They are minimum allowed to get 1 acre per 2,000 hens, which means like 20 feet, which is okay. The hens don't need a whole lot of space, but that's not that much either. And out of that space, at least 1/4 of it has to be available to the birds when they're outdoors. So it's kind of split between indoor and outdoor. So it's not that great, but it's better than a big factory full of chickens. Pasture raised, now this is more what I look for. They're given 2.5 per 1,000, which is way more. It's like 110 feet per bird, right? And they must be outdoor 12 months a year, so every month, right? So most of the time, these birds are probably treated way better. They're living a much better life. As we know, when you are subjected to stress, everything's worse physiologically. Same with animals. You don't want to be eating that animal. You don't want to be eating their eggs. And the other thing is, guess what? Eggs are not that expensive. So let's talk about it. Pasture-raised eggs versus grass-fed versus just regular old plain eggs. Definitely worth it to upgrade. You're going to get a little bit better health benefits from these eggs and that chicken. There's a significant increase in vitamin A and E content in these eggs, significant increase in omega-3 content, and the price, it's only a few dollars per carton. It's probably manageable for most people. It's also great bang for your buck with protein source. Most people like eggs. If you don't, then, work with what you like. But if you're going to buy eggs, definitely spend a few extra bucks on it, I'd say. Next, non-GMO product verified. This means no GMOs, obviously. And this actually, they're pretty strict about this one. GMOs, genetically modified organisms, if you've had watermelons without seeds, if you've had grapes without seeds, if you've had corn, you've probably had a lot of GMOs and don't even know and probably never cared until now, right? So why GMOs? Well, they last longer. They often have more nutrients because they're modified to have more. They need fewer pesticides because they're made and modified to be more resilient, and they tend to be cheaper. So a lot of people can afford these things that they couldn't afford before. One of the only real major downsides that I can see is that some people may have different allergic reactions to it. So I don't know why people get so upset about it. Maybe just because genetically modified sounds scary. A lot of people get worried about nuclear power because they don't understand it. Same thing. So I don't really care if my food is GMO free, honestly. I mean, I care more about the other things. I care more about hormones. And even then, I'm kind of wishy-washy on the science. So next, this one's a big one, gluten-free. Now, if you see gluten-free on meat, you can roll your eyes until you crack your neck, right? Because gluten is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. So when you see it on things that just shouldn't have that in it, be suspect, right? But gluten is, again, it's a protein. And when people have celiac disease or they have an inflammatory response to gluten, they're going to get an immune response in their gut, in their intestines. And if you have celiac disease, it can actually really damage your intestinal lining and can become a big problem to some people. Even if you aren't celiac, you probably can have some negative effects from this. But I find people are too quick to jump to conclusions on that one. And they think, oh, I didn't have gluten and I felt better. Well, they probably also cut out a bunch of processed crap and felt better because they stopped eating processed crap. That doesn't mean the gluten was the reason you felt bad. So take it for what you will. Talk to your doctor. If they feel as though you should get off gluten, fine. But it may not be gluten specifically. It might be something else. All right. And here's the last one I want to talk about today. American Heart Association certified. You'll see that heart with a check on it. This one, I got to get breath air out when I talk about this one, because if you know me, you know I feel very strongly about our current medical world and how they preach anti-fat to people. They preach anti-red meat to people, and they point to studies that were done a long time ago and had a lot of flaws in them as to why it's healthy for your heart. Things have gotten a lot better, and the science has become more prevalent, but this still kind of perpetuates some old myths. All right. So if something's AHA certified, typically it's going to be low in fat. It's going to be low, especially low in saturated fat. And it's going to be low in cholesterol, and it's going to be low in sodium. Now, we know that the nutritional cholesterol you're eating is not going to affect your cholesterol levels negatively. And many of you may know high density LDLs, HDLs. The HDL is high density, meaning it's smaller and it fits through everything better and doesn't clog up. And the low density is bigger, and that clogs things up. And then you have things called very low density that are even bigger and they're even worse. And these things are in processed food typically. So the big thing is it's not necessarily heart healthy if it's low in fat. And that's annoying to me. You can take a processed item and say it's heart healthy because it's low in fat, low in sodium, low in cholesterol, but it's still bad for your heart. So when you're looking at these things and you see this AHA thing, don't just say, hey, this is healthy. This is on Cheerios. This is on crap garbage cereal. It's really annoying to me. I really can't stand it. Juice, for instance, it's just going to be low calorie, 120 calories or less per 8 ounces. But guess what? That could be basically all sugar. It just can't be like added sugar. It's still not good for you. It's still going to spike your insulin. It's still not great for your kids. It will ruin your teeth. Who cares? Grains and grain products and bars. It's just got to have a decent amount of fiber in it. They consider high fiber 4 grams or more. And it's got to have 9 grams of added sugar or less, or 7 if it's got a decent amount of fiber. Doesn't mean it's good for you. It doesn't mean it's heart healthy. Milk, basically they just want milk to be low calorie, which milk's not making you fat, people. Fruits and vegetables are not making you fat. They're not causing your heart disease. So what's the upside of the AHA certified stuff? Well, it's likely it's being looked at. Things are being scrutinized more. They're likely low calories, so they're not going to be hypercaloric. They're less likely to be hyperpalatable. So there is some benefit to that AHA certified logo, but don't be swayed heavily by it. Honestly, if the logo is on an item, it's probably in a bag or a box. It's probably highly processed, and you shouldn't be in that aisle anyways. Get out of that aisle. You don't need cereal. You're not a kid. All right? So overall, what's the takeaway? First, buy local if possible. If you can talk to the farmer who you're buying your meats and meat products from, They can tell you everything. They know exactly what happened because it's their animals, it's their farm. All right. It's also great. You're probably going to save money too. You need to help local businesses. Buy local, right? Buy less processed foods. If it's in a bag, a box, if it's not directly frozen fruits or vegetables or frozen meats or something like that, try to stay away from that aisle. It's most of that food is not that great for you. Just go on the outskirts of the grocery store. You do not need to meander through the hallways of the grocery store. You're going to get trapped by one of those psychological tricks. All right. And buying organic, buying free range, GMO free, all that stuff, gluten free, it's a lot less important than it is to just get consistent whole meals with a good protein source, fruits and vegetables, and less hyper processed, hyper palatable carbohydrates, right? Just eat well, eat when you're hungry, eat real whole foods whenever possible. All right. Buying into all these logos, these clickbaity things, it's not going to help you out. It's not going to make you get leaner or sexier. It's not going to make you feel better. You know, don't get stuck on all those little things. That's my takeaway. Okay, guys, I hope this helped you out. Until next time, look out at the grocery store and be well. Thank you.